Good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Harry House, aka Beau, to this conversation about his entrepreneurial journey. Beau is co-founder of Nashville's first 24-hour ER specialty veterinary hospital. The practice started with originally 25 people and 5 doctors to now having 2 locations, over 40,000 square feet of space with over 30 veterinarians and over 200 total employees. Beau grew up in Northwest Mississippi and graduated from Mississippi State University. In August 2022, he joined the part-time EMBA program at University of Alabama, where I met him. Beau, thank you for taking the time to chat with our students today.
You are most welcome. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. And for the students, I will start off with some questions, and you are free to raise your hand or type a question in the chat box or ask questions on video as you want as we go along, or you can wait until the end, whatever you prefer. But Beau, let me start off with my first question, which is, can you tell us a little more about the business you run?
Yes, absolutely. And again, welcome everybody. And I know we got a series of questions and then y'all get to ask questions, but I just want to invite y'all to ask me anything. Y'all are going to give me an hour of your time. The least I can do is try my best to make this a little bit entertaining and also informative. So please ask me absolutely anything. And I'll do my best to answer. So yeah, just I'm pretty open book. So however I can be of help. But yeah, the business. So we are. I would assume we've got probably some animal lovers in the crowd today, and I am one of those as well. But I am a veterinarian. I again co-founded a hospital. We started in 2010. We opened another location in 2020. I'm in Nashville. And it's a little bit different than kind of the standard kind of small animal veterinary practice that you probably all think of. You know, we primarily see cats and dogs, but what really makes us different is the 24-hour ER aspect and the specialty aspect. So for us, where our kind of niche is we're open all the time. So we have 24-hour care. So that's if your dog eats something in the middle of the night, starts throwing up in the middle of the night or on a holiday or on the weekends or just is generally just really, really sick and needs 24-hour care. That's where we come in to help. The other aspect of that is we have most people, which is still kind of surprises us, but most people don't know that there's such things as specialties inside of veterinary medicine. So, and what that is simplified version is, you can, when you go to school, you get out and you can really practice on anything you choose: horses, food animals, which are, cows, dairy cows, beef cows. You can do dogs and cats, which is kind of what most of us think about. But you can also be specialized in a field. So, and that's kind of what there's a tract for that, just like it is in human medicine. So we have internal medicine specialists, we have cardiologists, we have oncologists, we have anesthesiologists, we have surgeons, we have neurologists, we have ER doctors that are specialized. They call them criticalist. Gosh, I'm probably leaving somebody out. Don't tell them if I do. But yeah, that's all the kind of the more specialties, and so that where that comes into place is maybe you're at your general practice and they hear a heart murmur and you have a new puppy and they say, you probably need to get that checked out. So you'd come over here and see our cardiologist. Opposite end of that is maybe you have an old dog with cancer and you want to see, kind of what your options are. You have a dog with seizures, you have a dog that's with spinal issues, paralyzed. Our little dachshunds are little wiener dogs, right? They like to have back problems. We have kind of the big diagnostics. We have an MRI, we have CT, ultrasound, and we have all the really the knowledge, because these doctors, they have gone on to further their education and become specialists in their field. So it's just a higher level of kind of care. Maybe you've got a cat that's a really complicated diabetic. Maybe you've got an animal that's had diarrhea for 6 months, a year. I mean, these are the animals that we see. And your vet has kind of your family vet's thrown every medication at it and still won't get better. That's kind of where we come into the picture. So it's a little different. We don't do any preventative care. We don't do any wellness. We don't do any vaccines, spay neuters. And what we're really here for is we're really here for the veterinary community. We really serve them, and they primarily kind of refer cases to us as they need us. So a lot of our primary customer is not always necessarily the pet owner. It's a lot of times the veterinary practitioner or the veterinarians in the community.
Wonderful. And now that they know you are an animal lover and animal carer, I think the students are going to love you even more, at least many of them. But tell us about your academic background.
Yeah, so I'll try not to be too long-winded, but I started off as a pretty mediocre to poor student in high school, and really kind of got my act together my senior year. And I really wanted to pursue a professional school, and quite honestly, I wanted to go to vet school, but I didn't think I could get in. That's really what I kind of figured out later. So I was actually pre-dental. So I have some dentists in my family, and I still really love dentistry. I used to do a good bit of dentistry and with animals, but yeah, I really kind of got my heart set on being a veterinarian and wanted to go to vet school, but I feel like I feel like I had a huge mountain to climb, because the students that I was really up against were probably like many of y'all, really high grades, high standardized test scores, and that was totally not me. So I got a kind of got my start. I went out, and I went to a little community college that was close to home, and did well there, and just really lived. I started working in a veterinary practice, and going to school, and really just putting all my time, energy, and effort into that. Transferred to Mississippi State, and went for a full year, and did really well once I got my act together and made really good grades and made a good network for myself. Had a lot of a good bit of experience. I was able to get in in 3 years, which is there was other people that did that, but you definitely had to have a pretty strong resume. So actually, one of the things I don't have is a bachelor's. I never graduated undergrad, which in a way kind of bugs me, but in another way, it meant another year I'd have to take student loans out. So yeah, that was to me, it was just fine. So went to vet school. That's a 4-year process. Got out 2006. And I always thought I would probably go back and do more. And I got out and practice, at a general practice for a year, went back to the University of Florida and did an internship, which is kind of a track to do the specialization. I thought I was going to go down that road, decided not to, and started doing ER. And so I did ER for a while. Then is when I, really got into more management, leadership, ownership, starting this hospital in 2010. And then, as Dr. Gupta said, I totally lost my mind and went back to school at the age of 42 last year, and got my MBA. and from University of Alabama through their executive MBA program.
Which is a part-time program. So you're still running your business during the week and then taking classes during the weekend. But can you briefly tell us what did you do after graduation? After you passed out from Mississippi State, what was the next step? Did you start your business immediately or did you go do something else?
Yeah, no, not immediately. I went out. Like I said, I took a job down in outside Tampa, Florida, for a year. That ended up being a really important year for me. It was both kind of it was a big year. So I took that job from someone I didn't. The guy that owned the practice, the veterinarian, he was actually doing a kind of an alternative residency track to be a dermatologist, be a veterinary dermatologist. And so he was gone a lot, and I was a new grad. And so I was there pretty much running that practice by myself, just looking like I, had just graduated high school. And so it was a big learning curve. I had big shoes to fill because he was a great veterinarian, great guy. But I was kind of on my own, a lot of that year, which was tough. But then I went back and did an internship, and then that's a year kind of intensive program where you're just working with kind of the specialists that I talked about, at Florida's vet school, and then I went until 2010 when we moved to Nashville to start the practice. So yeah, that was, I guess, a little over 4 year, process before I, kind of really. Always heard this, like, what is it, like, 5 year itch or something, 4 or 5 year itch. That people talk about that vet school is like, if you want to do your own thing, that's kind of like, you get out about 4 or 5 years and you either have it or you don't. And I definitely did.
And we'll talk about that in just a second. But tell us a little bit about your family background. How was life growing up? What influence did your parents, siblings, neighbors, cousins have on you? Tell us about life in Northwest Mississippi, where you grew up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually probably a lot like it is today. But no, I grew up in a really, really rural community, really a farming community. Pretty poor place, overall. And we had a lot of animals, but we did not use any of the services then that I offer now. I mean, it was really kind of it was. There's probably nobody that's had more dogs than me, at least on this Zoom call, and probably in a larger population than that. Because I mean, I grew up in the country, and dogs kind of came and went. But I mean, I loved it. So the embarrassingly true story is, I grew up around the corner from the county dump. So when you live somewhere so far out in the woods, they don't actually come pick up your garbage. You have to actually take the garbage somewhere, and that was around the corner. Well, the other thing is that people dump at the dump are also animals. So it was kind of fortuitous a bit. So I would go down there with a bag of dog food, of course, and go feed them and bring them back. They'd end up at our house before too long, because they figured out, where I was, where the food was. And so there was just this perpetual all the time, and I'll hand it to my parents. I mean, again, we didn't, offer a lot of, the care that we kind of see as standard today. But, my parents never said no. I mean, they're those parents that were like, okay, another dog, it's like, and these are outside animals. But so yeah, just and I probably got that from my granddad. So my granddad lived a little bit down the road, and he just kind of had a heart for animals, and he didn't make a big deal of it, and didn't really say very much, but about it. But looking back, he was really a great influence because he would do the same thing. He'd go to the dump and pick the dogs up and bring them to the house and kind of, nurse them back to health. All the while, my grandmother was giving him just an earful because she did not approve of this, of course. So yeah, but it was just I was really fortunate to kind of just have a lot. I mean, there's a lot of dogs got hit by cars and broken legs and gunshots, and one of my favorite dogs got shot, and I had to kind of like nurse him back to health. So these are like distant memories now, but it's kind of backwoods medicine for your dogs because that's what we had. It's just it's kind of crazy how it's come so fast, light years ahead. Kind of the expectations and standards and what people will do for their pets is it shocks me every day. So
Yeah, Bo, on that, let me ask you this. Do you think that's because where you live has changed now, or even the expectations have changed in Northwest Mississippi where you grew up?
yeah, it's interesting because I mean, there's still a lot of stray dogs running around where I grew up, but I see it even in small communities. People are really, I mean, that they send that every year or two, and y'all probably seen them like, the two questions are, do you consider your pets as family members, and does your pet sleep in the bed with you? Those are like the two questions, and every year there's a higher and higher percentage of that. I can't remember, I'll misquote it, but I mean, I want to see say it's above like 60%, of that pets are family members. So yeah, it does seem like, and I just see it kind of course, I never miss an animal, just this is what I'm paying attention to when I'm out and about. And, um, I was at like there's this nice mall in Nashville. Um, and we were there, and there's like somebody who had their dog riding down the escalator, in this mall, and it's like, it's just like people just bring their dogs in the mall, and it's almost just kind of accepted. So I'm sure y'all are seeing the same thing. I would think, it's like they're really, so I do see it as kind of a cultural shift, and I think that we're an example of that. Years before, an MRI on your pet, brain surgery on your pet, the things that we can do, um, and it's can be really expensive too. But yeah, I mean, people really want this. It's sometimes it's for me, from a backwoods guy from Mississippi, it's kind of like, wow, at times it kind of even shocks me. But yeah, it's just that human animal bond. It's a pretty amazing, really powerful, really deep thing. And I think it's really ingrained in our culture. And I think it's only going to get more.
So, so Bo, help me understand this. You grew up in a rural town out in the country. You go to the best university in the state, Mississippi State. You make your way there. You go to their flagship or their best one of their best programs in veterinary. You get a job in Florida. I mean, you're living the dream for a guy from where you were. So why change track and then sort of start your own? What motivated you to start your own business then?
Yeah, I think it was kind of multiple things. Just one, to be, direct. I mean, my entrepreneurial journey is not one of, I didn't create the veterinary practice field. I didn't create what we are doing. I certainly didn't create the human animal bond, which is why we exist. Um, but so it's there's kind of a platform that's there. It's really about, kind of access and network and opportunity. And I kind of really, we could have gone anywhere. So I didn't say this before, but my wife's a veterinarian too, and she's a neurologist. So she's a veterinary neurologist, and she was finishing up her training in Gainesville when we were down there. And so we kind of the economy was kind of rough. It's 2010. That was after the housing crash and all that. So it wasn't as strong, but we were looking at big markets, and we could have gone anywhere, really. And what I saw in Nashville was an opportunity to own a hospital, and that's really what interests me above all the other opportunities. We could have taken a lot of jobs, but that offered a different kind of opportunity. So I always say that Nashville is the last large market town to not have a ER specialty hospital like what we built. And what I say, a large market, over 1 million people, and so that most large markets would have something kind of like what we're doing here, usually multiple, that we do too is now, as well. But that's what was different, and that's really what drove me here, is because I really saw the opportunity. It was a lot of risk, it was scary, it was also a lot of work, all those things. There was no guarantee it was going to actually happen or even be successful, especially in that economy where just no one felt really, confident about anything. And during those years, it almost kind of be like if y'all remember the early days of the pandemic, where it was just kind of like the sky's falling and, the world's going to end. You just didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously very, very different, but it was still that kind of same sentiment as like, man, you're going to go start a business now? Like, this is a rough, this is a bad time, but yeah, I'm not sure I answered your question, but it really was about the drive to want to do that. And there was like one simple thing that, again, I grew up, relatively low on the economic platform, in my childhood. So, there was, I had heard this saying, years ago, stuck in my head. It's like, you want to buy, or start or own, or have an asset that appreciates, and then you have that for a while, and you hope that it grows and it becomes worth something more, and then you can sell it, for more. So it was just like a very basic thing. I was like, okay, sounds like I need to do that, So not the only reason, but it was just something else that kind of always stuck in my head, was like, you need to be putting your money in something that's going to grow.
Okay. And I know you mentioned the challenges of people saying, well, is this really the time to do it? Is this what do you really want to do this? But what are the other challenges you faced in starting this business? How did you deal with those challenges? Financially, emotionally, time, family? What are the main challenges you faced?
Yeah, I mean, then the early days, it was just, you don't know what you don't know, and that is just really scary, and I remember very clearly just being like, I think we have a 50-50 shot. I think this is like 50% going to work, 50% is going to fail. And just not knowing, but yeah, those early days are tough, just because you're just trying to get off the ground, and really kind of um kind of prove a bit of the model, recruiting, retention, really having the services, what really drives, of course, the financial model is really having the medical providers, which are the doctors. So when you need those people, you need to be able to tell a story of why they would pick you, the up and coming, new person versus someone that is more well established. Um, so yeah, it was whew, it was definitely some tough times with a lot of risk. Um, yeah, could probably go on and on.
So at what point did you know? So you started in about 2010. You mentioned the risks, the uncertainty, you know, if I build it, will they come? Kind of, I know you didn't use those words, but that's sort of the idea you shared. So when did you know that the business will survive? When did you know that, okay, this is going to work?
Yeah, it's funny you said because I kind of walked around with a pretty significant fear of failure for a long time. That definitely really drove a lot of my behaviors and kind of how much I worked, at the business and really trying to, to help support it was because, that fear of failure was definitely a real thing. Um, and definitely, had kind of some many sleepless nights, but I mean, it's been a very cyclical process. I would say, and we may talk about this later, but in 2016, me and my partner, he was a senior partner, I was a junior partner. He's about 10 years older than me. Um, but he was it really, I think the first relief I remember is when we partnered with a large veterinary consolidator um, that purchased the majority of our practice in 2016. And that kind of meant a lot of things. It meant we kind of knew how we could stay in the practice and function. We knew how we could sell out eventually of the practice. And there was some relief at that point. And this was a pretty big, the largest, if, yeah, probably still the largest kind of veterinary consolidator in the U.S., if not really the world. So that's a pretty big backing, and that was the first time I remember after the transaction. I'd sold a little bit of my equity, but I kept most of it. Um, but the way that we felt is we really felt like kind of the mom and pop, and we could see that like a lot of really successful kind of service businesses, as they were getting, kind of consolidated and purchased by these bigger players that were really well backed, that were becoming very organized in how they, leveraged their ability to recruit and to, purchase drugs and be just more efficient, operators. So yeah, that I think the question was, when did I, first feel some relief? I think it was 2016. But then, I mean, this pandemic is, there's been no relief through that. It was pretty challenging. And we definitely hit some low points where it was like, I don't know, this is going to work. It's like we're really struggling, and if we, lose some key people, like this is going to be really hard. Um, so yeah, it's not been some kind of like linear thing by any means. Uh, yeah, but the last thing I'll say, I mean, I'm sure a lot of businesses are like this, but what we do, it's actually it's very intense. It's very emotionally driven. It's very emotionally intense field. Um, because again, it's like we see the sickest of the sick pets, and we see people on their maybe their worst day. some of the worst days of their lives, and we see this over and 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 over again. So it's a very challenging um, field. So we have a lot of issues with um, burnout and but we can get into kind of more challenges maybe down the road.
Yeah, which does bring to my next question. It's a good segue into the next question. What are the major challenges faced by the business now?
Yeah, well, the first one is I think that uh, the first is and this is very true across many industries, but we had a pretty major labor crisis before the pandemic. And then the pandemic kind of just rewrote all the rules on so many things. But a lot of people left the field. Kind of what our story was is that it was just really, really intense because we never stopped. We kept going. We never had a pause, like, go work from home for 2 years or whatever. The job done here is done on the hospital clinic floor. So, we had to figure out a way to keep that going in the face of the pandemic. And then, what happened is we saw a spike in caseload. So it's really interesting. We saw this we see this in a cyclical pattern, and it's usually around a snowstorm. So it's really interesting. So what happens in snowstorms is, and Nashville is it's kind of the same thing, and heaven forbid a snowstorm hit Tuscaloosa, it'd probably be cars piled up everywhere. But kind of the same thing here. The whole city just stops, right? A lot of y'all are from the South. A lot of y'all probably aren't from the South and see how ridiculous it is, too. But but the hospital just goes it's like silent. It's dead. Usually most people kind of move their appointments or cancel their appointments. So, it's kind of quiet. And then by that night, though, the ER practice just kind of blows up. And it's literally people are sitting at home. And sometimes it's like the next day when it's like a multiple day event. People are kind of sitting home looking at their pets. They're with their pets. So, things happen. They're not usually there. The dog, open the door. The dog gets to the cat. The cat gets out the door, gets in trouble, eating something they shouldn't have. So, the routines change. So kind of these things change, or people are sitting around looking at their pet that's been limping for 2 weeks or 2 months, and they want to venture out because they're tired of sitting at home and they want to go, they want to go do something. So we actually see that. And so it was different, but the same thing. So a lot of people adopted pets. There was people just being at home with their pets. So we saw this tremendous surge all throughout the pandemic, which we sustained for about, I would say, a solid year and a half. And then we started seeing some fractures in that. And it mainly just being around a lot of burnout, because it was just, we weren't as staffed as well as we wanted to be going into the pandemic. And then we were seeing twice as many pets with the same staff. And then people started leaving, getting burnt out. And so we couldn't keep up. So it was a real, it was really hard, really challenging. And we had to start saying no, to veterinarians that were wanted to send us their, sick patients. We had to say no to clients that wanted to, come in. It was a really hard time, for us. So those labor challenges continue today. They're not as intense. The visits, like number of pets that we've seen, have kind of come down to, kind of like a what we would call normal. But the labor thing is still probably the hardest. This is still a challenging environment for people. It's a very it's just a demanding job. It's a demanding um, space to work. So it's it kind of takes a special person to want to kind of come here and work the hours. And it's a any of y'all that are familiar with human healthcare, I mean, they've been kind of experiencing that for a while too. It's just really hard for nurses, and there's nursing shortage, doctor shortage, all those things, and they're just experiencing a lot of the same things that we are. So, gosh, sorry, labor it could go on for so long about that. But besides that, kind of in a more kind of micro, we have more competition coming in town. We really feel like there's going to be more competitive forces kind of in our particular market. Nashville's really sought after market for people, businesses, all of those reasons. So we see that coming, and more coming. So that's something we're going to be faced with. Other things are, rising prices of services. So our cost of, and this isn't ours, but this is for ER specialty medicine, not through on the other side of the pandemic, we're paying about 60% more, for labor, drugs, just all the things that we do has gone up significantly. So we've raised our prices about probably 40%, 40 something, over a 4-year period, 3-4 year period. So, and the challenging piece is that, on one hand, a lot of people will pay it, and can pay it, but it always was a bit of a we were kind of catering to more wealthy pet owners, and that's kind of what it always was. But there's kind of a mismatch, because now more people want this level of services, but it's gotten even more expensive. And there's very little relief. There's pet insurance, but it's in the single digits of people that have it. By the time they come into us and they don't have it, it's too late. So really those are some pretty big forces out there that will continue, because our to pay our team, we're going to have to pay them really well. We're going to have to pay them more than we have historically to recruit and retain and draw people into the field. But in how we are going to do that, of course, is we're going to have to, charge, pet owners to really deliver this type of care. So part of that is part of it is kind of my issue, because it just doesn't feel good, to do that. We all want to be able to help pets, so we want to be able to help as many as we can. But there's a kind of just a business reality and a monetary reality of that. Most of our clients are all, that they're paying cash. We're a cash business. We unless you have insurance, a lot of people are leveraging, debt, or they're fortunate enough to be able to afford. So
it's a business where the client is paying out of pocket, which then means you're catering to maybe middle to upper middle class, or people who are willing to sort of, put money on their credit cards or whatever, to afford the healthcare for their pets. Is that a correct summary of what you just said?
Yes, I think so. Sorry, conciseness is not my strength. But
No, that's good.
yeah.
I think the way you've explained things is very useful for the students. Before I go on with questions, I want to open the floor to students for questions. Anyone? Do you have any questions you want to ask? Lars, please go ahead. Beau, Lars is one of our very entrepreneurial and sincere students. So Lars, go ahead.
I was just wondering, so you run this hospital, so are you like in the daily like management of the pets, or are you strictly doing like managerial stuff on your just daily activities?
Yeah, great question. So I did ER for several years. Um, I am off the clinic floor. Gosh, I can't remember now. Probably sometime around the pandemic, early years of pandemic. Um, but yeah, I had to. Oh, I shouldn't say I had to. I made a choice, large that kind of early-ish on like which way I wanted to go. Was I going to be more? Because in the early days, I did it both. I worked. I was working overnights, and then I would sleep in my office, out of bed in my office, and I would wake up the next day, and then I would, help run the hospital. And obviously, there's only so long you can do that. But I did that for a while because that's really what was needed. But I never wanted to do both. I never wanted to kind of, um, I kind of wanted to I just wanted to focus, and kind of decided that there would be more longevity and it would really fit our life because as I said, my wife's a veterinarian, and I just had kind of interest in the running the business and the entrepreneurial kind of side and the business side. Um, I love being a veterinarian. I don't have really anything against it. I'm also kind of I'm kind of a knowledge junkie, I guess. It's like kind of like I'm looking for like the next thing, which is, probably pathology related and in that. But it just I loved being a veterinarian. I love doing that. It kind of gave me the opportunity to for really business ownership. And then it was just so interesting, really hard, but it was just really interesting, trying to kind of make this thing happen. And it just never felt like I left anything. It never felt like I was really leaving anything on the table for me. I missed it for sure. And, you get a lot more feedback being a veterinarian when you kind of save the day. You do some things on the managerial ownership side and no one ever sees it. And they sure ain't coming to slap, to give you a high five. It's just, it's a little bit different on that level. But yeah, I'm off the once again long answer. I'm off the clinic floor now, Lars, totally, and just on the more on the administration side.
And Bo, just so students know, your wife still practices uh, as a veterinarian, and she's employed in the same hospital that you started and you run. How is it managing your spouse as a boss?
Yeah, that's it's really been the majority of it, trying to I mean, I think we all have a tendency to kind of remember the negatives, that negativity bias that kind of kept us alive in our younger evolutionary days still kind of gets in the way a little bit. But I would say that, and there's definitely been some downsides, and I could speak to that. But honestly, it's been great. I mean, like today, she forgot her lunch, and I brought her lunch. It's just kind of this is like this is not a partial, kind of endeavor. Being a veterinarian, being a professional, being an owner of a practice, this is not something that you do kind of half-heartedly. This is like full present everything. You got kind of experience, and so really, it's been nice for us to kind of be together to do that. There are definitely are some downsides, to it, and those times have been tough, really tough, really challenging. Um, but it's, overall, we've really enjoyed it. And the other thing that probably makes it a little bit more helpful is we've we have the hospital's big enough where we can kind of spread out a little bit, so it's a pretty big place. If we were like, two veterinarian practice and working beside each other, I mean, it probably wouldn't work at all. But fortunately, there's like enough space, and really these services like a neurology service, surgery service, internal medicine, they kind of run like separate departments and almost like separate hospitals to a degree. So for the most part, if I would actually have to go find her at work to say hi to her. So we're not like just super close, which helps give it a little bit of space. But yeah, but the tough stuff is real because like a lot of spouses, opposites attract, and like we do not see things the same. When I have to sometimes deliver messages and deliver things that are not popular, um, and also that people don't really always know the whole story to, and those things can definitely create conflict, and but it's also a good balance, because she kind of keeps me honest, and because I will say, I mean, I still am, on the clinic floor, involved a lot, but it's easy to get removed from it, and you start thinking you got it all figured out, and you can, it's a good place to kind of come back to saying, I need some perspective, so she actually provides that, and it's a good thing. It's hard to hear sometimes, but it's a good thing.
And Beau, you have a young son. He's growing up as a son of two veterinarians. Do you hope he'll follow in your footsteps professionally or as an entrepreneur someday? Or what do you hope for him?
Yeah, the stats on that are pretty are pretty poor. I can't remember what it was, but they sent a thing out to veterinarians, and it's like, do you want your kids to be a veterinarian? And it was like it was very, very high, like saying no. So it's kind of unfortunate that it's that way. Um, I don't think either one of us have any like aspirations for him to do anything because we want him to do something. Uh, yeah, I mean, if he chooses that, that would be great. But I think it would be disastrous for us to really push him into it and him not, and not be, because again, if this is really if your heart is not in this profession, you're going to have a long, hard career. That's because it takes a lot, and so I would want to push him into anything that he wasn't really inspired, himself, um, to do. And he complains about school constantly, and so I doubt he's always trying to play the angle of like, how long do you have to go to school to be this, you know? Yeah, so he's seen us, and we'll see. He's seen me go back to school this last year, as well. So hopefully one day that'll be inspiring. I'm not sure it was this last year. It may have talked him out.
Other questions from the students? So, Beau, let me ask you this. I remember you mentioned that at your company, Halloween is a big celebration. Why? When and why did you decide to make such a big deal out of Halloween?
Yes, first of all, it is a very big deal. And I actually asked this year to someone. I was like, what? Like, because it was hard to remember back, like how it all started. But I think who I finally have come back to thinking through that, there was our first, kind of front desk receptionist that ever worked. Halloween was her absolute favorite holiday. And a lot of people are like that. There's probably people in the crowd that's like, people just love Halloween, um, and I really enjoy it too. But she used to dress up for Halloween every year, and she just loved it. And she made this huge deal out of it. So somehow it just has gained a little bit of traction over the years until it's finally just, I can send you some pictures and you could show it to the class if you're interested. I mean, it's really impressive. Like the I mean, people have gotten like professional makeup to come to work. Like it's a little over the top. We had one person that did Pennywise clown a couple years ago. Our oncologist, he dressed up as a pirate this year. I mean, like Johnny Depp, like Pirates of the Caribbean, and saw patients like that and clients all day as a pirate oncologist with a hook, all day long. So, but for the most part, yeah, the clients have always been in on it. But on some level, we're kind of like, this is our thing. You don't even have to like it. Like we're doing it. So we have a great time with it. It's really fun.
See, what I find interesting is from your answer is that the idea didn't come from one of the founders. It was more of sort of bottom up, like the front desk employee started doing it, and then management sort of, and everyone else in the company embraced it and made it part of the culture. And I think, that's really interesting about this whole thing. But at some point, you said you decided to sell your ownership stake in the company, or at least part of that. And you mentioned, you saw the consolidation going on in the industry. Was that the only reason, or was there personal reasons, or was there anything else that, drove that decision?
Yeah, I mean, those are like the big ones. Again, we kind of saw what was going on, and kind of it almost be kind of like the best kind of comparison. So if you were like a family run hardware store and in a decent sized town, or maybe even a pharmacy, and kind of looking at those industries, what happened, you've got Home Depot and Lowe's that moved into decent sized markets. And then smaller markets, you got Ace Hardware, and then there's probably some others that are in there, and there's just not a lot of, kind of mom and pop hardware stores. Kind of same thing with pharmacies. Seems like they've weathered a little bit better, but I mean, you look at there's a Walgreens and a CVS, or on about every corner, and sometimes the building's there now, not the business didn't make it, but they kind of effectively were able to kind of outcompete the local people on some levels, to be able to gain an upper hand, and we just saw that as it was at least a fear or reality, and I think it's on some level become true, and largely become true, just as the labor market, especially like the doctor recruiting through the pandemic and before, it's just gotten so intense, really hard, because it's a pretty significant, and for us, we're of course not looking for just a veterinarian, but we're looking for very particular, specialized, veterinarians with certain experience. So our pool is much smaller, and then there's other hospitals just like us that are looking at that same small pool. So that was just a reality, is like, how are we going to be able to sustain, and so we really found what we thought was a really good partner. The group that we went with was a group that they didn't change your brand, they didn't change your name, they didn't change your medicine. It was really, they were more kind of on the backside to really help build, and they were growing their kind of presence in ER specialty too, to be able to really manage. They took a lot of the kind of some of the back end business pieces, they have a whole recruiting team, a whole marketing team, accounting team, kind of all the stuff that somebody that can help figure out all the taxes and all of that, stuff that you never really think about, but are just, kind of paying, insurance and all that stuff. Kind of take care of all that, and let you focus on sometimes more of the medicine, or focus on really just continuing to, build your hospital in a unique way that you've, keep your culture and, keep your kind of what you've been intact, but just, accelerate that. And it really worked for us. I mean, we about doubled in size, in the period that we thought we did after partnering with them. And it's hit a new, just it kind of we're kind of faced with another round of new realities. I think now with still labor market being really tough, um, and the economy kind of slowing down, and we had all those high visit years to the pandemic, and now that's come down. So it's now we're having to be a bit more operationally efficient, where before we were just trying to see all the animals that wanted to come in. So it's a little bit of a different piece. So sorry, I'm bad about getting off. Your question was how why do we sell? And the other thing is that there was just we saw that there was kind of a bubble, that was occurring, and there was kind of pretty soon there was kind of a race to see who could kind of grab as many of these hospitals as they could, to kind of who was going to have the largest market share. And so that as a part of that race, the valuations just kept going up and up and up, and numbers that just had never really been seen before. So that was another part of it too. There was just we could kind of de-risk on the mom and pop versus really having a lot of resources, and we could de-risk just personal investment as well. And we needed more space, so we were at kind of a thing where we were going to run out of space, and for us to take on more space was kind of like, okay, we're going to have to double down, and put your individual, you just have to put all your personal assets at risk and all that stuff, and kind of double down. And so we were able to kind of take a little bit of those chips off the table and still do that, but not have so much of the weight, be primarily on us. So just again, kind of a de-risk.
So, Beau, you had about a 12, 13-year career as an entrepreneur, ups and downs, as you described. How do you think your career compares to other folks who graduated with you from college with the same degree? Sort of when you talk to them, when you meet with them, when you go to reunions, how do you think your career turned out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of people in my class that, started their own hospitals, bought their own hospitals, and have been really successful, for sure. I think probably the difference for me was just probably just the scale at what this, what we've done here, and just, I mean, we were small once, we were kind of like a small, I remember we were like, again, started with like 20 something people, then we're like 40 or 50, and we're like, wow, this feels a little different now. It's like, and then we're 100 people, and you're like, oh shoot, I don't know that person's name. And now we're double that. And I think that for me, it's just been probably, personally and professionally more exposing, when you just have more eyeballs on you, you have more expectations, you just have, more exposure, to a lot of people. I mean, I'm just, I always say that, the hospital has afforded me it's kind of built me and broken me, multiple times, just kind of the successes and failures, and just, it's just been a really hard ride at times. And, I kind of wonder if other folks have kind of had that same experience. I know that it's probably been tough, but just the number of things that you're trying to do with an organization this large, and this kind of complex. It's been a crazy ride. But again, not that it's better or worse, but it's definitely afforded I've learned a lot about myself, for sure.
Let me ask students once again if they have any questions that they want to ask you, because now we are headed to sort of the last 5 to 10 minutes of the interview, of this conversation. So any students who have questions?
They probably set a timer for 12. Hopefully their alarm woke them up, so they wake back up at 12. They're like, what does this guy do? Is he
Anyone,
a
guys?
professional? He cut hair? How many of y'all out there have pets? Yeah.
Okay. So, Beau, let me ask you this then. What advice would you offer to young adults about to graduate from college, which is, our students are juniors here, and in a year or year and a half, they're going to be embarking on a full-time career. What advice, in your experience, would you offer to them?
Yeah, so my goodness, I mean, the one thing is nobody's got it all figured out. Like, no matter what you see and read, or talk to successful people, and everybody's kind of got their things, and not everybody's like got some perfect story and some perfect life. There's and that's something that, I always am like, man, why is it so hard for me? And like, I see this other person, it's kind of like, they make it seem so easy, like, man, it seems like so much harder. So, to me, I try to, and this is really hard for me too, but I try to kind of approach just myself and kind of this, kind of business and journey, with kind of, I don't know what to call it, but it's kind of like unsettled patience. It's like you can't rush it like overnight. Like, it's always a process that's longer. There's very few kind of overnight success stories. There's very few, like, you just made it and you can just, it's still, you just have to keep kind of chipping away, chipping away. So I think it's, for me, I've wanted things to happen a little bit faster at times than they have, and that's been hard. But it also doesn't mean, the kind of unsettled part doesn't mean you can't go out there and try to make opportunities, happen too. Because I do think part of life, part of opportunities, is kind of putting yourself out there, and kind of creating. You can't control, like, really what happens. You can't control outcomes always, but it's just like kind of doing the things that will get you to the place you want to be, or at least get you closer, to the place you want to be. And for me, that was like, I just was dug into school because I needed really good grades. I I found a veterinarian that could mentor me and help me, um, you know, uh, introduce me to someone else that was at the school that was like, kind of help me, when I went to undergrad, and just say, hey, these are the things you need to pay attention to. Do this, 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 and this. And I still didn't know, I mean, if doing those things would help, but, just help kind of put myself in the right position to make those things, come true. So you have to have some intentionality to it, but also realize that, it just takes time, and it's okay not to know. That's another thing. Like, I still, I did that MBA in that school, and I still have no idea what I'm really doing with it. I really don't. Um, but just it's another one of those pieces of the puzzle that I really just wanted to, kind of go for it and see what would happen.
And so now, Beau, my last question. Some of our students are going to start their own business, or they are starting their own business currently. What advice would you offer to aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, the couple of things. I would work on kind of removing, in an entrepreneurial standpoint, or remove the words such as fair or guaranteed or um, uh, any of those things where I think you have to, again, create opportunities for yourself. Uh, and it just comes down to like a lot of hard work. And, where I was trying to go with the guarantee and fair, it's just focus on the stuff that you can control, and nothing's going to be given to you. You have to have that mindset. You have to go out there and again show up. uh, I do think another thing that's important, is figuring out kind of who your network is, and I think that is something that is just so important. And y'all can go out there and I don't know, prove or disprove what I'm going to say, but so many people that I meet that I would consider really successful, they have really amazing networks, that they've kind of created through the years, and I think that is probably where most of our opportunities kind of come from, is kind of through a networking thing. So, um, if you run across these people that you consider, family members, friends um, of people, you could ask them, kind of how they've kind of built and what their network is like. But that's just something else that I see I think is really important. And I think even with, who knows, as the business world continues to change through all this AI, as it becomes more integrated, I still think that, the power of your networks are really gonna, is really, and sometimes that's just showing up. I mean, literally, like, it sounds so silly, but um, in a very early phase of this hospital, somebody, if a veterinarian wanted to talk to me for any reason, or there was a veterinary event or anything, um, I'd just show up, and talk to them and just see kind of what would happen. And sometimes those, and it just, what it accumulated over the years is I just got to know a lot of people, and that ended up being very, very helpful in our success. Because again, back to like, who is our primary client? It's, the family vet. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beau. As I listened to you share your journey, I learned a lot. I'm hopeful the students also learned a lot. And thank you very much for your time. I keep my eye on the clock because a lot of students have class after this. So we certainly can't go over time. I had many more questions to ask you, but thank you very much.
Yeah. And thanks everybody too. And I know if there's any other questions, I'm a little shy in a crowd too, but I can give you my email address or and you can share that. You know, it's if anybody is interested in going to vet school, I can give you some pointers or any, you know, or just more questions, whatever.
Yeah, wonderful. I'll ask you for your email address and then I'll share that with the students. As you can see, the chat box now is coming more alive with thank you messages. But
Yeah,
thank you, Beau. Thanks a lot.
absolutely. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.